Hey, you guys. Welcome to Talk About It Thursdays. I was having a little bit of technical difficulty trying to get the live going, but I am here now. Let me know when you're on. I would love to say hello to you. I pray everyone is having an amazing Thursday. We're one day closer to Friday and 2 days closer to the weekend, you guys. So y'all hang in there and keep holding on, and we'll be to another weekend. Hopefully it'll be a beautiful weekend. Hopefully it won't be as hot as it was last weekend. It was sweltering in Texas, in East Texas. It was really hot. And I hate to say this, but I was looking forward to some rain and being able to kick my feet up and just relax a little bit. You guys let me know when you're on. I'll give you just a couple of minutes in case you guys were having some trouble getting on as well. And then we'll get started for today. I hope you guys have been journaling. For those of you that need to kind of work out some things for yourself, I hope that you have found that journaling is a good outlet for you. I've been jotting some things down just for myself, these days, and just trying to get some stuff out and trying not to keep everything bogged in and just bottled up all the time, because stress is horrible for your health. So it's better to get it out some kind of way. If you don't have someone that you can confide in and talk to, write your notes, write your journal, talk to God about it, because He's the only one that can do anything about it anyway. So you guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started just so I can let you guys go, because I know y'all have got a lot to do just like I do. Our topic today is you put it out there, sis. A lot of times we don't think about what we put out into the atmosphere. We think that our attitude only affects us, which is not true. It affects everybody. So you have to understand that what you put out in the atmosphere, 9 times out of 10 is what you're going to get back. And we want to talk about the law of reciprocity, which basically means that we pay back what we receive from others. When somebody does something good for you, it's only right for you to pay it forward and try to do something nice for them, or even do something nice for that next person. If you don't have an opportunity to kind of do back to that other person the way they did you. And on the negative side of that, is that boomerang effect. When you go out there and you do something negative towards somebody else, at some point, all of that's going to come back to you. It backfires on you. And that's why they call that the boomerang effect. You get the consequences of what you put out. So that's why it's so important that you know what you're doing before you do it, because a lot of times you're going to reap what you sow. And I don't know about you guys, it seems like I see a lot of people reaping what they're sowing a lot faster, than they used to. I see a lot of sickness. I see a lot of death. I see a lot of just people just having a hard time. And sometimes it's because of the seeds that we've sown for ourselves. It's not always somebody holding us back. It's not always, somebody cursing you, this, that, and the other. Sometimes we do things and we set things in motion for ourselves. And then we have to deal with the consequences of it. So that's why it is so important that you think about what you do before you do it. And ask yourself, if this was being done to me, how would I feel about it? So that's how you should look at it. If you don't want something done to you, quite naturally, you shouldn't put it out there for somebody else, or shouldn't do that to somebody else. Because life has a way of bringing it back to you, that boomerang effect, or that karma, as we like to say. Karma doesn't play fair. Hey, Kinsley, karma doesn't play fair. It gets you anytime, every time. So just understand, if you want good, you need to put good out there. Okay? And toss out only what you want returned to you. A lot of times people feel like they don't deserve this, that, or the other. And a lot of times you don't deserve the bad that you do, or the bad that you get. But just understand that sometimes we have done some things to set things in motion. Some things, that we should have left alone, and we didn't leave it alone. We just kept fooling with it. And then we got a negative effect later. You may have had your heart in the right place, but some things are just not for you. And when they're not for you, you really need to leave it alone, because eventually the end of it all, you're going to be the one that gets hurt. So toss out only what you want to have returned to you. That needs to be the way we think about things, about what we do, about what we say about other people. Say things that you would want to hear back said about you. You know, life is hard enough. There's going to be enough people beating us down and beating your brother and your sister down. Don't you be the voice that adds negativity to it. So make sure that if you don't have anything nice to say about somebody, don't go around bad mouthing people, because you wouldn't want those things that you're saying said about you. So think about that. And you have to learn to love life. And when you love life, you tend to love people. When you start appreciating what you have and just being grateful for what you have, a lot of times you can learn to love people a little bit better. Sometimes you have a little bit more tolerance for people when you decide that I love my life. You know, it may not be perfect. I don't have everything that I want. I don't have everything that I think I need. But we all know that God provides all of our needs. So we already know we have what we need. We may just not have some of the wants, that we have in mind. But once you become grateful and learn to appreciate and be content, it's amazing how much more tolerance you have for other people. It's amazing how much more compassion you'll have for other people, because you're focusing on what's good in your life. And when you focus on the good, that's what's going to flow out of you. And when you focus on negative things all the time, that's all that's going to flow out of your mouth. And people will begin to avoid you simply because they don't always want to hear this negative stuff all the time. So be careful what you put out there. Because it goes out there and it gets something, whether it gets frustration, whether it gets people avoiding you, whether it gets, more negativity, it goes out to get something. So you have to understand it's very important what we put out in the world, you guys. There's enough negativity out there, so we need to focus our attention on practicing thinking about those things, as the Bible says, that are good, that are lovely, that are of good report. The Bible says to think on these things. And he says that because he knows there's enough chaos and negativity and confusion in the world that you have to put your mind on something better in order to survive and in order to maintain your mental health. And then learn to lift someone else up. Because when you lift other people up, you're bound to be lifted in the process. Those things go hand in hand. When you begin to work out some of your frustration in a positive way, just like exercise. It might be a negative thing that pushed you to exercise. Maybe you just had a lot of stress going on. But the way God works that out, if you exercise enough, guess what? You improve your health. You improve your mental clarity. You improve your disposition. All that negative thing may have started it, but God can turn it into something good. So just understand that just because the negative is the motive that put you there, just understand if you stick with it, and if you're determined to do better, you're determined to live better, then God is going to work that thing out no matter how it started. So just understand, we have to have a mindset that we want to be better. And when we lift other people up, you will be lifted up in the process. And when you decide to stop feeling sorry for yourself, you'll lift yourself up in the process. You'll be amazed at what you can get done when you start focusing on other things and focus on those good things that are going on in your life. And karma is like a boomerang. Good or bad, what you put out in the universe will be served right back to you. So be careful about what you put out there. So let's see what we can do to ensure that what we put out in the world is something that helps people instead of hurting them. The first thing is check your intentions, check your motives before you do something. Make sure that you're doing things for the right reason. Make sure you're not just doing things, for people to applaud you and for people to kind of fluff you up and make you feel like you're great and stuff. Because that's only temporary. That's fleeting. So you want to do things for the right reason because you'll feel more fulfilled, and it'll mean more if you do it for the right reason. God will work with it when your motives are right. God can turn that little thing that you tried to do for somebody into something big. He'll make it a bigger blessing than you even intended or you even knew that you could do. But your heart has to be right and your motives have to be right. Hey, Rashida. And number two, give it your best shot. Whatever you do, give it your best shot. Even if you're unsure about some things, put your best foot forward, because there's no point in trying something if you're not going to give it your all. So be careful about just halfway jumping into something. If you're not all in for it, leave it alone, because sometimes you just wasting time when you're just thinking you want to do something and then you start out on it and then all of a sudden you drop it before you even get started. You're just wasting time. So give it your best shot and put some thought into it when you do it. And number three, make the most of a bad situation. Like I said before, sometimes we're pushed and motivated because of a bad situation. Sometimes that's how we get motivated to do better, to be greater. It's because of a bad thing that happened to us. A lot of times people won't get out there and go to school and get their degrees or get a better job until something bad happens, and that motivates them, that gets them mad enough or gets them frustrated enough to the point where they say they're not going to go through that anymore, and they do better. So sometimes it takes that negative thing to help us to get to our better place. So make the most of a bad situation. Don't wallow in it. Don't sit back and spend years trying to figure out what went wrong. Sometimes you won't figure that out for 10, 15 years later what you did wrong or what messed up in that situation. But don't waste time dwelling on a bad situation. Just get up, dust yourself off, and try something different and just move on from it. Number four, be grateful for all that didn't happen. A lot of times I have to pray to God and say, Lord, I thank you for all the things that didn't happen. All the things that I couldn't see, those unseen things that God protects us from. We have to be grateful for that, you guys, because we have no idea of all the things we've been shielded from each day, because sometimes we put ourselves out there in a way that makes us vulnerable. And sometimes we're just in our feelings. Sometimes we just don't know any better, but sometimes we put ourselves out there, and trust me, people are always watching you. They're always looking for your vulnerabilities. There's always a schemer out there. There's always somebody ready to take advantage. And sometimes we put ourselves out there. And that's why I titled this, you put that out there, sis. Because sometimes we do that. We let people know that we're lonely. We let people know that we want a companion. We talk that all the time. And then before you know it, some joker comes along and slides in and does exactly what we said we wanted somebody to do. And then before you know it, you're hooked up with somebody that's not any good for you. And then they start showing their true colors. And you try to figure out why and how did this happen to me? Well, sometimes we put that out there. Sometimes we talk too much. Sometimes we act too thirsty. Let me say that again. Sometimes we act too thirsty. And we get what we get because we are putting ourselves out there. We're desperate. We're compromising on things that we said we weren't going to do anymore, and we're lowering our standards just because we want to be with someone or just because we're trying to fit in with someone else. And when you do those things, you're going to get negative in return because that was not for you in the first place. You tried to conform and fit so that it would be something that was for you. But if it's not for you, it's not going to work out. Number 5, pick your battles. Don't be that person that's always arguing with people over every little thing. Some people are just argumentative. They're ready for a good fight. Don't let that be you. Don't let that be your character. Pick your battles. Everything is not worth fighting over. Everything is not worth an argument. Everything is not worth your time. And you have to learn to recognize that and learn to value your energy, because you taking all that energy to fight with somebody, argue with somebody, try to get your point across, and at the end of the day, it means absolutely nothing, and you're exhausted. So Pick your battles and make sure it's worth it. Make sure there's something on the other end of it that's actually worth fighting for. Okay? I got to get something to drink, y'all. I'm so sorry. Running in from work, I'm so thirsty. Okay? Number 6, choose peace over being right. Now, this is a hard one for most of us. Because most of us, once we think that we're right, we're going to stand tooth and nail on it. But sometimes you have to choose peace rather than being right. A lot of times, even with us raising our kids, we know, right from wrong, and we know our kids know right from wrong. And sometimes you can just browbeat them and just fuss at them so much. And what you may be talking about may be absolutely right. But if you have gotten to the point where that's all they see you as, that person that nags, ladies, when it comes to our male friends, if they see you as a person that's always nagging, guess what? They're going to start tuning you out. Our children do it, our men do it, and women will do it. If somebody's always got to get their point across and prove that they're right all the time, and you may be right, but there's ways of handling that. Sometimes you have to choose peace. Sometimes you have to leave it alone, even when you're right. And you have to decide peace is more important than chaos over the fact that I have to be right all the time. So learn to choose peace over right, because you know that sometimes that peace is what you need to give a person time to think. And when you get quiet, sometimes they'll come back to you and say, you know what? I thought about what you said earlier. And you know what? Now that I think about it, you were right. But sometimes God just needs you to be quiet so that other person can have time to think. So choose peace over right. The Bible even says, peace be still, because God has to work with that other person. God has to talk to that other person. Sometimes your voice is annoying. And especially if you're fussing all the time, people are no longer listening to you. You have to learn to choose peace sometimes, to choose quiet over being right. And that's how we bring that positivity back in, because with all those emotions going, with all that fussing going on, that's not going to bring anything positive. Okay? And then number 7, don't overthink everything, and don't be afraid to be spontaneous. If you always worried about what could go wrong before it goes wrong, you may never do some really important things in your life. I used to be that person. I was always weighing out, okay, what could go wrong if I do this? But then my question is, will I sit back and regret it if I don't even try? And so I'm learning to at least give it a try. And if it's for me, great. If it's not, I didn't lose anything. But at least I can stand back later and say, you know what, I tried that, and that just wasn't quite for me. But don't overthink it. And don't put your perspective into something that you really don't understand. Because if you've never done it before, you don't understand everything about it. So don't be afraid to be spontaneous and try something new. Because you never know. You may find something that you enjoy about yourself. You might find a new gift, that you didn't even know that you had. But you have to be willing to step out there and at least try and not overthink everything. Number 8. Keep an open mind. Don't be afraid of new ideas. Everything that somebody brings you doesn't have to be traditional. It doesn't have to be the way we've been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years. Sometimes listen to people when they try to show you something and say, let's try to do it this way. Learn to keep an open mind, because sometimes, this new way, sometimes it's an easier way than the way we used to do things. Sometimes it's a more rewarding way than the way we used to do things. So you got to keep an open mind and be willing to let other people share their ideas with you and not be so closed-minded. And that's how you'll keep peace, because people like to know that they're being heard. People like to know that what they're saying is valuable to you. So keep an open mind and don't be afraid to try something new. Okay? And then things that can influence what we put out in the world. A lot of things influence, how we act, how we respond to things, how upset we get about things, or how we manage, even our money, our financial obligations, our household, even raising our children. All of that is influenced by things from our past and things that we were raised around. And a lot of times there are, number one, generational curses. There are things that go on in our families, from years and years and years back. Those bad habits, those bad behaviors, those secrets that people don't want to talk about. Sometimes those generational curses go on from generation to generation because nobody stands up to it and faces and said, hey, why are we always fighting with each other? Why are we always jealous of one another? Why are we always, so critical of one another? Somewhere down the line that started and nobody took time to find out why, and nobody was willing to let it stop, with them. With generational curses, you have to be that person that says, you know what, it stops with me. This is not going to go through my children and my children's children. You have to be the one to stand up and say enough is enough, even in your family. There's family members that don't get along with each other. You may have to be the peacemaker because God is in your heart. It is our job to be the peacemaker as much as we can and try to get along with everybody, even with members of our families. And then other things that run in the family, alcoholism, drug abuse, all those things. You have to be willing to get to the root cause of that and say, you know what, we're going to stop this right here. We're going to find out why this keeps happening, and we're going to get together as a family and we're going to do something about it so that this doesn't go on for generations to generations. Okay? So those are those generational curses, and those can influence what we put out into the world. How we raise our children. We learn from generation to generation. How we even value ourselves, or how we even value marriage. A lot of divorce. In your family, that's a generational curse. Somewhere, something keeps going wrong. And you have to figure out what that is and find that seed and pluck that thing up. Number two, generational blessings also, influence what we put out in the world. People that come from money, they see the world a lot differently from those of us that have to earn every dollar. Those of us that have to struggle, to make ends meet. When you're born, as they say, with a silver spoon in your mouth, you see the world differently. You have more confidence. You're more willing to try things. You're not intimidated, as much as other people, that have not been surrounded with all that luxury. They have a lot of family traditions, generational wealth. They don't have a whole lot of issues with finances because they teach their children about finances at a young age, which is something that we need to do no matter how much money we make. We need to start while our children are little, teaching them how to manage money, teaching them how to build their credit, teaching them how to avoid the traps of debt that have bound so many of us that we've had to fight and claw our way out of. But those are the things that when you've got money and you come from wealth, those things are presented before you. Those things are available for you. But it doesn't have to just be for the wealthy. We have to change our mindset about that, as far as what we're teaching our children. Yes, they may not have all the advantages, but so what? You can still teach them the things they need to know so that they can have a better life than what we had. Okay? And then number three, how we were raised, the environment that we come from, it influences how we develop as an adult. It influences how we interact with other people. It influences how we interact in relationships. All of that comes from how we were raised and what was in our environment and what we saw, what was modeled in front of us. So that says a lot about what we put out into the atmosphere. Some people are only putting out the only thing that they know. Whether it's right or wrong, that's what they know because that's what they've seen their whole life. So that's what they put out. And number four, the desire to fit in. We have to avoid that desire to fit in because that makes us put negative things out there. That makes us put falsehoods out there. When you're trying to fit in, you're not really being yourself, so you're being fake. So the desire to fit in can really cause you to put some things out there that's not your true self. And you don't want to do that, because there's nothing wrong with who you are, because you got to know that God made you to be an individual. He did not make you to fit in with other people. So do away with that desire to fit in with everybody and just be yourself. Number 5, how we feel about ourselves determines what we put out there. Our self-image and our self-esteem. I've seen women, that seem to really have high self-esteem, and then once you get behind closed doors with them, you find out they're just as insecure as everybody else. So don't think just because they're beautiful or they've got a good shape that they have their self-esteem intact. A lot of those ladies are petty and jealous and everything else, simply because that's how they feel about themselves. Something in their life has made them feel like they were less than. So even though they look good on the outside, they still got issues on the inside. So how we feel about ourselves determines what we put out in the world. Number 6, the good and the bad experiences in our life. The pain and the suffering that we go through decides if we're bitter or if we get better. Some people choose to be bitter just because of bad experiences that have happened, and all they do is spit bitter seeds all the time. They're the first ones to criticize everybody. They're the first one to say when something won't work. They're the first one, to shoot something down when you give them an idea. And it's because they haven't healed from the bad things that have happened in the past. And see, when you've had a lot of good experiences, you talk differently. You speak differently to people. You speak with enthusiasm. And when someone brings you an idea, you're like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Go ahead and try it. I want to see what happens, blah, blah, blah. But when a person has a lot of bad experiences, they just can't see that there's anything good out there. They can't see that there's still hope. And that's because they haven't been healed. Number 7, our relationship with God and our religious beliefs decide what we put out there. A lot of times, when we get closer to God, we don't do some of the things we used to do. We don't even dress the way that we used to do, and it's simply because it's not so much worrying about what society thinks. It's just you feel different. When you feel different, you dress different. You want to look different. But that's because you're trying to be who God wants you to be. You're trying to be that new person that God is showing you that you are. You can't really keep doing all that old stuff and then say that you're new. So when you start getting closer to God, just some things, desires just kind of are taken away from you slowly, and some things don't even interest you the way they used to. So our relationships with God and our religious belief, it changes the way we think about things. It changes our desires, is what it does. So it changes what we put out in the world. Okay? So let's discuss the effects of good and bad vibes that we put out into the atmosphere. The effects of the bad vibes and that negative energy, number 1, is disconnect. You can't connect with somebody when you're always negative all the time. Not too many people are going to want to be around you except people that are as miserable as you are. If you're always complaining all the time, negative all the time, always speaking fear and doubt, it keeps you from making meaningful connections. Because you can't connect to something when you're always putting up this barrier of complaints, and this barrier of I don't know, or this barrier of it's not going to work. How are you going to connect to somebody when you're always throwing up walls and shields from everything? Because you're afraid. Number 2, stress. When you have a lot of negative energy, bad vibes around you, it's going to eventually cause you some stress. And when your stress level increases, it's going to impact your health. And stress can destroy your body, your hormone balance, impair your immune system, and it also throws off your brain chemistry. When you're stressed a lot, you can't even think straight. You know, I don't know if y'all have ever experienced this when you're tired, and it doesn't even have to be physically tired. It could be just tired from having to think about stuff and deal with stuff and handle stuff, and it's just so much being piled on you at one time. Before you know it, you can't even think straight. That's that brain chemistry that's off simply because there's just too much of a weight that you're trying to carry. That's what stress will do to you. And before you know it, your body will start to break down. That's what happens to a lot of our immune systems. You know, it's not that some virus got us. Our body just broke down simply because we've been carrying way too much stress, which means that we haven't taken time to relax or taken time to take a step away and get to ourselves and have a minute to just meditate and try to figure out, you know, what do I need to do for me? Because when you're stressed out, you tend to avoid your self-care and you stop taking care of yourself when you're stressed out. And then fatigue is another thing that happens when you're around a lot of negative vibes and negative energy. You know, you're just tired. You know, there are some people that literally will drain you. And when you started out talking to them, you were good, or started out visiting with them, and by the time you leave, all you want to do is go home and lay down because they have taken every little bit of energy from you. There are people that can do that, and you have to really limit your time around people like that. And another thing negative energy can do, it could cause infidelity in your relationships. You know, when you're always bickering and negative and, you know, nothing's ever right, nothing's ever good, you know, when you just want to always, like I said before, you always want to be right, you're stubborn, you're withholding affection from that other person, you can almost guarantee infidelity. It's coming. And that's that door that the enemy wants. He wants you fighting like that all the time so he can wiggle in with that other person that's just more than willing to be submissive, more than willing to be, you know, that person that never argues with you, the one that compliments you all the time. That's a trap. But when you leave the door open because of your stubbornness and your having to be right all the time and you're not going to tell me what to do, be careful with that, because you're putting that out in the atmosphere and you're letting the enemy know he's got a door that's got a crack in it, and I promise you he's going to come through. So infidelity will happen in your relationships if you choose to not put peace within your relationship and understand you have to balance. Yes, there are some things that you have to discuss, but it should not be a constant negative environment, because that's going to lead, somebody's going to run and try to find some peace somewhere else. Okay? And then poorly expressed anger is another thing that happens when you're around negativity. You know, a lot of times negative people or having negative thoughts all the time will make you blow things out of proportion. And then you'll look back later after you've acted a fool and say, why did I get so mad about that? Or why did I do that? That's because you allowed that negativity to take control of you. And, you know, we've all seen, you know, when we were younger, how, you know, somebody was going to get in a fight and you have these kids just egging it on, this, that, and the other. That person may not even want to fight, really want to fight, but they want to fit in. They don't want to look weak. So guess what? They let the negativity of the crowd push them into doing something they really didn't want to do in the first place. Same way in life as adults, when we're always dwelling on negative things, that slight thing, that little thing that really wasn't that bad, you'll blow up and go off the handle over the smallest of things. And everybody will be wondering what in the world happened, because you have poorly expressed anger because you've allowed your thoughts to be consumed with negativity. And that happens more than you think. Okay? And then poorly expressed anger can cause a dysfunction in your heart and also in your digestive system. So negativity has a way of just tearing your body down. And then number 6, you'll develop a bad reputation if you're around negativity all the time, because it tends to work on your attitude. So you become that person that is that angry person all the time, or that person that they say has a bad attitude, or that person that has a bad understanding. So you'll develop that reputation about yourself simply because you allowed yourself to be consumed with negativity. So understand you can develop a bad reputation from that. And then how you react and how you act can leave a lasting impression. And we all have to understand that, what we do in a moment will affect some people for the rest of their lives. Anything that we do never just affects us. And a lot of times we think, well, it's my life. I can do what I want to do. But understand, what you do may be affecting somebody else for the rest of their life. A lot of times things that we say in anger to other people, while you have said it and you're like, well, I apologize, they just need to get over it. No, you should have thought about it before you said it, because those words can never go away. They'll never go away. So what we do affects other people. So we have to think before we react. And you have to count up the cost and make sure that that explosion was worth it. And most of the time, you're going to see that it's not. And understand that sometimes no reaction is actually the best reaction to a situation. You don't have to react to everything. You don't have to respond to everybody's comment. You don't have to fire back all the time. That doesn't make you a bigger person or a better person. Sometimes it's just best to walk away and don't ever give them a response. You'd be amazed at how that would frustrate them to no end. Sometimes you just have to be quiet and just walk away and preserve your own peace. Okay? And then number 7, you slowly become critical of everything and everybody around you, simply because you've allowed yourself to dwell in negativity. Yeah, you see something wrong in everything. Trust me, we all know people like that. If you tell them something, they're ready to shoot it down. It's because they have more negative in their life than positive. Okay? And then I want to give you 6 steps of how to shut down negative people. Because sometimes it's hard. Some of us are so nice and we stand there and we listen and we allow them to just drain all our energy. Let's stop doing that, y'all. Let's stop letting people waste our time. Here's 6 ways to shut down negative people. Number 1, have a positive response to match whatever they're being negative about. Come up with something positive. They hate that. Come up with something positive real quick about it. Number 2, put a time limit on your time with them. Tell them you got something else to do. Girl, look, it was good to see you, but I got such and such to do. I'll talk to you later, and keep it moving. Number 3, turn their exaggerations into fact. People that are negative all the time tend to exaggerate. They like to exaggerate and try to stretch the truth as much as they can because they're trying to get a reaction out of you. They want you to be as negative as they are, so they'll stretch that truth. And you come back with them and make them prove it into fact. And just say, oh, okay, so when did that happen? Okay, on such and such and such. Well, I hadn't heard that. Okay, well, I'm going to look into that. They'll start backtracking a little bit if they think that you're going to do some fact finding. Shut that down. Number 4, try to make them see both sides of the situation. You play that person that says, okay, I see where you're coming from, but did you ever consider that, they might have, thought about it this way or that way? A lot of times you have to let them see that there's 2 sides to the story, not just their side. Okay? And then number 5, let them know that you're sorry for what they're going through and change the subject. Change the subject or find something else to do and say, girl, let's go do such and such and such and such. Cut them off. Find an activity to do. And number 6, this is the most important. Do not inhale their drama. Don't let them just really just lay all that on and then you get yourself all involved in it. Shut that down. If you're not trying to be in all that negativity, shut it down. Be like, girl, I hate that happened. You know what? I'm going to just pray about it and just keep on moving. Don't inhale their drama and don't get into conversation after conversation about the same thing if it's something negative and it's something that's going to pull you down. Don't even invite that conversation and limit your conversations with that person. Okay? And let's talk about a few effects of good vibes, positive energy. Number 1, self-confidence comes from positive energy. Number 2, open-mindedness, adventurousness, and spontaneity comes from good vibes and positive energy. You become more optimistic. You appreciate a challenge instead of avoiding them all the time. Uh, Self improvement. When you feel good and when you're around people that talk good and always have a positive attitude, it makes you want to improve yourself. And you'll find that you're doing things to try to improve yourself and you won't even realize it. A lot of times you'll start wanting to be that person that lifts everybody up. You want to be that person that make everybody smile the way other people are making you smile. That is contagious. Just like the negativity is contagious, the positive energy is contagious as well. So you'll want to start improving yourself when you get around good people with healthy minds that have positive outlooks on life. It makes you automatically want to do better for yourself and improve yourself. And then you'll have the ability to connect and form solid relationships. You'll start getting with people that enjoy your company and you enjoy theirs, and y'all will be able to start being around each other and helping each other grow. That's what you want. That's what happens when you're around a lot of positivity. Everybody starts helping the other person grow and be a little bit better. And the next thing is number 6, you look better and you feel better. When you've got a smile on your face, you look better. When you're happy and when you're speaking positive things, you just automatically develop this glow about yourselves. And I always say, that's that sunshine, coming through you because you're spitting sunshine out. You're making other people happy. You're blessing other people just with the things that are coming out of your mouth and just how you're carrying yourself. So you develop a glow about yourself because you're happy and because you have a positive outlook on life. It helps other people to do the same. Number 7, it sparks creativity. When you're positive, you're more optimistic, you are enthusiastic about things, and it gets those juices flowing to where you can think of things that you never thought of before. That's what I've learned about positivity. It makes me a lot more creative, and I try things that I've never tried before simply because I believe I can do it, simply because I feel good about myself. I feel positive about my abilities because I know if I don't know how to do something, I will do the research to find out how to do it, and then I'll get it done. But that only comes if you have a positive mindset. And then number 8, you have a more grateful outlook on life. You stop dwelling on what you don't have and you become grateful for what you do have. And my final thought is, since we're all put here on this earth, we need to give out good vibes and good energy. We need to make sure that everybody around us has some light in their life. You be the light. We all have stuff that we struggle with. We all have issues with finances, family, this, that, and the other. But you can still be the light. You can be that person that walks into a room and gives everybody a hug and say, hey, it's good to see you. I thought about you the other day. I'm just happy to be here with you guys. Just something that simple. You don't have to be fake. You don't have to make stuff up. Just come in with the right spirit and a good heart and remind yourself that what you dish out, you are destined to receive back in some kind of way. And because we reap what we sow, let's plant some seeds of light and some love and some forgiveness so that we'll receive those things back, because that's something that we all need. Thank you guys for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And I want you guys to have an amazing weekend. No matter what has happened this week, understand that you are a conqueror. A lot of times, we're getting stressed out on these jobs. I personally, have had some very stressful days, but what I'm understanding is every day is a new day. So what happened yesterday, you have to put that to bed. And you have to realize that, okay, I can't do anything about what happened yesterday, but let's make today a better day. And every morning I'm trying to wake up and say, you know what, today's going to be better than yesterday. And so remind yourself, you get a new chance. You get to start fresh every morning. So don't take that old trash from yesterday into your today. Okay? Love you guys. Love you guys. Love you guys. Love you guys. And y'all take care of yourself. Do your self-care. Self-care. Do some stuff for you. If you don't do anything but take a bubble bath, go for a walk, pamper yourself in some kind of way, and sit down and relax and give your body time to rest. That's how you're going to end up putting out those positive vibes. You have to allow yourself to reboot. Don't keep going all the time. You are not a machine. Allow yourself time to reboot. Dwell on those things that are good in your life. Dwell on all the things that God has blessed you with. And before long, you'll be the light just as well. You be the light. That's our job. Simple, to the point. God bless you guys. Take care. And I will see y'all next week. Bye.